So I volunteered, or was it maybe peer pressure, to come and do this talk, knowing that it was on confidence and my experience of it. So I started to think about what confidence means to me. So to me, it's about being able to go and do something that you might not think you know everything you need to, but it's going doing it anyway. It isn't not being afraid, because if it was that, then I wouldn't be here, because I am. It isn't doing something without thinking about the consequences either, because I have a habit of just agreeing to do things without really considering how difficult it might be. But that's not confidence. I think that's just laziness. It's something. I think it's something in you that says you can do this. You know it won't be perfect, but you'll go and do it anyway. And it's about having faith that you know what you're talking about and sticking to your guns and not doing that. So I thought about what affects my confidence, and I think something that really knocks my confidence is negative self-talk. So that is the voice in your head that talks to you during the day and tells you what's going well, or in this case, what isn't actually going well. It sounds like it isn't on your side, but actually it's your brain's way of trying to protect you. It knows you're feeling a bit apprehensive about something. It's your brain's way of saying, don't go and do this because you're worried. So why are you worried? So you hear it more in some instances than others, and you could just ignore it. Or you could listen to it and then not put yourself in tricky situations and just stay in your comfort zone all the time. But if you're wanting to improve yourself and push yourself and do your job well, then that isn't the way to be. So I thought I'd talk a bit about what my voice says. So I've spent a bit of time like trying to consciously notice what it says. So mine says to me, God, I should have thought of that. I can't believe you didn't think of that. Why are they the ones thinking of that? You're so stupid. And then maybe it'll say to me, everyone else here is just wondering why on earth you're here. What value are you adding? Maybe they'd be relieved if you left. Maybe they wouldn't even notice. And then sometimes it just stops giving specific criticism. It just like goes all out. But doesn't do it all the time, thankfully. Otherwise I'd be a gibbering wreck. And I say that I'll be a gibbering wreck under my desk. And it's funny how I say desk, because I do tend to notice it more in work situations. So like it doesn't come and get me when I'm walking around the supermarket, for example. But then when I think about it, maybe it does come and talk to me in social situations as well, but I've not really explored this. So this is really what I've thought about from a work perspective. So now I know that my brain is trying to sabotage. Well, what do I do next? Do I just live with it? So I thought maybe the first thing to realize is that these are just thoughts. They're not facts. Just because you think it doesn't actually make it true. We also have a nice acronym of ICE to help us. It's a process we can go through to dampen down any thoughts or the effects of the thoughts. So we can identify the voice, what's it saying, when is it saying it, so a bit like I've done. And then you can confront it. So when I have my example of, I should have thought of that, and that will be right sometimes, but what about all the other times that I did think of something? And then finally we eliminate. So elimination is probably a bit optimistic. It's not going to go away forever and be quiet all the time, but you can make it quiet and speak up less often. So one way to do this is to get some evidence. So get that when you get feedback or when you've done something that you're proud of, save those examples and look back at them. So I went and did a bit of research online to see what else we could do. One of them is give the voice a name. So this is Beryl. This is my voice. And I've decided that anyone who wears a house coat and crochets antimacassars is not someone you should listen to very often. I might be taking this advice slightly too far by giving her a hobby, but you know, whatever works. This one is a bit wishy-washy, but stick with it. When you hear the voice, recognize it for what it is. It's a thought. It's not a fact. It's not an opinion from another person, even though you might think it is. It's just your brain thinking it's doing you a favor and trying to protect you. Something else you can do is treat yourself like you treat a friend. When you hear that voice, you think, is that what you'd say to a friend if they were in this situation? And the correct answer is definitely not yes if they were being as stupid as me. because you wouldn't. So when this voice talks to you, talk back. What would you say to your friend? Give yourself that pep talk. Thought stopping. To be honest, this one is not for me, but it might be for you. It's a 3-step method. So firstly, when you spot the thought, yell stop in your mind, not out loud. Secondly, take 3 big, deep abdominal breaths. And then thirdly, imagine a quiet, calm, beautiful image as the focal point. I thought about this and I couldn't imagine doing it in the middle of a meeting, for example. So I've not tried. So you could replace with a positive affirmation. So these should be personal to you. They should reflect your personality and your achievements. I thought about giving you an example, but actually the thought of doing this for myself makes me squirm a little bit. So I've not done it, so I can't. But the idea is you've got your positive affirmation, and then when your negative voice returns, you can attack it with your positive affirmation. Or another thing that's a bit similar is when you hear the negative, add a positive onto the end. So instead of just hearing, I should have thought of that, you can hear, I should have thought of that. But I did make that other contribution earlier, which was also useful. And that's where your evidence comes in useful as well from earlier. Another thing you can do is train your brain. So this takes a bit more time. It's not something you can do on the spot, but you can train your brain to be more positive. So you could do a morning visualization exercise. So you visualize what your day will look like when you're at your best. And then at the end of the day, ask yourself what you did during the day to achieve that visualization. Don't go over what went wrong. Instead, write down what went well. So even if this was really small, just write it down. Do this every day or every few days. You've got evidence to go back to. It becomes a ritual and your brain becomes more used to being positive. And then this next one is my own final personal piece of advice. So it's not backed up by research or a website or come from anybody else, but I've installed a teenager in my head. So this could backfire quite badly, but at the minute it's working. So when Beryl says something mean, he can come back with an eye roll and a whatever, yeah, and it shuts her up. So I've just got to make sure he doesn't take over my brain, because that would be quite nasty. But hopefully some of that will be useful, and I know not all of it will be, but there might be one. If there's one thing someone can take from it, then it's been worthwhile. So thank you very much for listening.
Brilliant. Thank you, Louise. We'll do a virtual clap. Thank you so much. That was so insightful. I was actually talking about negative self-talk earlier on today, saying that when you actually say negative self-talk, people say, oh, well, what's that? And then when you start to say, oh, it's those like voices in my head that say, well, I can't do that, or, you know, who do you think you are? Or, you know, you don't look great today. And then people go, so you get that voice as well. And I think it's when people start to talk about it and acknowledge it, you actually go, yeah, we all do experience it. And it's not about like, you know, it'd be great to extinguish it, but being realistic, we're not. It's in terms of how to manage it and control it. And that's some great advice there, Louise, about how to do that. Has anyone got a question for Louise, either whether they, oh yes, Jennifer, do you want to unmute yourself?
Absolutely. First off, Louise, I just wanted to comment how smooth and candid your presentation was. And I really like the teenager suggestion. Besides that, though, I found that the new courage, if you will, is vulnerability. And so I was wondering what your thoughts on that was.
Well, as you could see, I was quite candid there, and I don't have a problem with admitting when I'm struggling with something. So today we was talking about delegation with some people, and quite happily admitted that I struggle with delegation because I see it as a weakness. I'm admitting I can't do something if I've delegated it, which is completely wrong. So I think opening yourself up to people helps them trust you, and building those relationships, which can only be a good thing.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Got some great comments on there, Louise. a lady called Rebecca, and said that talked about she's got gremlins in her head at the moment because she's starting a new job and it's telling her they're fraud. So hopefully, Rebecca, the tips that Louise has shared this evening will really help you in that. I hope you can make use of them and put them into practice. That'd be brilliant. Thank you. Oh, and she said it has. So Louise, make sure you read those comments. And yeah, obviously our community is all really about supporting each other. So as I said, you can pop in the chat if you've got any feedback, any comments. It's just obviously recognizing people that are, for the first time speaking out about such a vulnerable topic, as Jennifer mentioned, and it'd just be great to obviously recognize that and give them some praise and recognition in the chat, which is absolutely amazing. Thank you.